Hi learners, be attentive. We are discussing the final support as evidence for organic evolution, and that is comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy is the study of organisms in different species with the aim of establishing whether the organisms are related or not. Anatomy refers to the body form, so we are comparing the bodies of different organisms with the aim of establishing whether the organisms are related or not. Organisms which have the same basic features are thought to have a common ancestor. Under comparative anatomy, we shall discuss divergence and homologous structures. And divergence is a situation where the basic structural form is modified to serve different functions. For instance, the vertebrate forelimb, big structure in birds, and even feet of bird, and even parts of a flower. These are called homologous structures. Homologous structures have a common origin, have a common embryonic origin, but have been modified to serve different functions. You can see the origin is similar. The same pattern is seen in the forelimb of a human being and that of a whale, as well as that of a bat and a horse. They have 5 digits: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they have been modified to perform the different functions. For instance, grasping, this one is modified for swimming, this one for a bat is modified for flight, and this one for a horse is modified for running. So these are homologous structures, and these are pentadactyl structure, meaning it has 5 digits. Adaptive radiation is a situation where organisms have a homologous structure with common embryonic origin, which is modified to perform different functions in order to adapt organism to different habitats. For example, beaks of Darwinian finches. These are birds which used to occupy Galapagos mountains. Beaks and feet in these birds have common embryonic origin depending on the mode of feeding and habitats respectively. Nectar feeders have long slender beaks, while carnivorous birds have strong hooked beaks. This is the original or the parent species, and that is the beak, but the beaks of these other birds have been modified to serve different functions. This one feeds on leaves, while this one feeds on seeds. This one is a carnivorous. It feeds on flesh, so it is hooked and very strong. The webbed feet of ducks is another example of adaptive radiation. And the feet of ducks are used for swimming, while those ones of eagles have heavy claws for grasping and tearing the prey. You can see the one for an eagle is used for grasping or holding the prey and tearing it. This one for a bat is used for walking on water. This one is used for walking on mud, and so forth. Convergence and analogous structures is another support for organic evolution, but it is under comparative anatomy. Convergence is where different structures are modified to perform a similar function. For example, wings of birds and insects. These ones are modified for flight. And the eyes of human beings and octopuses, their function is to see. So they have similar functions. These are called analogous structures. Analogous structures have different embryonic origin but have evolved to perform similar functions due to exploitation of the same kind of environment. Examples of analogous structures are these: the wing of an insect and the wing of a bird. Both of them are used for flight, but their origin is different. You can see the wing of a bird is originating from an endoskeleton, which contains bones, cartilages, and muscle for attachment. And it is also lined with some feathers. On this case, an exoskeleton in wings is thickened by a polysaccharide called chitin. So exoskeleton is not as tough as endoskeleton. An exoskeleton is just found on the surface. Endoskeleton is found inside the body of the organism. And a skeleton actually means what? It means that framework that gives the body of organisms shape, and it is also used for muscle attachment. Finally, we have vestigial structures, and these are structures that have greatly reduced in size and have stopped to function. For example, in python and whale, there are no externally visible hind limbs, but their original presence is proved by the presence of rudimentary pelvic girdle. So the pelvic girdle is reduced. Pelvic girdle is that hip bone. Appendix in humans has no digestive function. It is an example of vestigial structure. It has no function in human beings, and it is therefore reduced in size. While in rats, it digests cellulose. Another example of vestigial structure is the flightless birds like the kiwi and the ostrich. Their wings reduced in size because they existed in an environment which required no flight. So that is vestigial structures supporting organic evolution. That marks the end of that lesson. Complete this assignment. You can even discuss with your peers and refer to notes. You can even ask yourselves questions which have not been asked in this session. And remember to give the correct spelling. Goodbye and see you in the next lesson.